Always trust.
After 15 years in office, Sheikh Hasina's rule collapsed under mass protests, international pressure and growing dissent from within her own ranks. Bangladesh's most powerful leader since independence was ousted last year, marking what some now call its second liberation. Brought in to help navigate the aftermath, Mohammed Yunus, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, once celebrated for lifting millions out of poverty through microfinance, now at 84, tasked with guiding a nation marred by repression and corruption on a new path. But questions remain. Is this a true break from the past or just a reshuffling of elites? Will the interim government deliver free and fair elections or build a future on its own terms or shaped by its own interests? There's also a reckoning abroad. Relations with India are tense. Hasina is in exile in New Delhi, where she continues to issue statements claiming she's still Bangladesh's rightful Prime Minister. And US President Donald Trump is threatening steep tariffs, increasing economic pressure. Now, with the world watching and a country in flux, we speak to the man at the centre of it all. Mohammed Yunus, Chief Advisor of Bangladesh, talks to Al Jazeera. Mohammed Yunus, welcome to Talk to Al Jazeera. So you've described the fall of Sheikh Hasina as Bangladesh's second liberation. I wonder if you can explain what you mean by that in the terms of this period of transition for the country.
Bangladesh came to a stage where corruptions and violations of all norms, destruction of all the institutions were going at absolutely at the 100% level. So that's the time when young people emerged. They said, that's enough, you have to go. So they raised this issue, you have to go, and marched on the street together and made it happen on 5th of August. So that was something to see the enormous amount of misgovernance and enormous amount of atrocities and enormous amount of cruel things that have been done to the citizens of the country and plundering of the economy totally, stolen everything that they could lay your hands on. So they brought it to the end of it. So that was a kind of emergence of a new Bangladesh. They call it New Bangladesh. So the old Bangladesh is a kind of terrifying things. We want to create a new Bangladesh. That's the beginning of the new Bangladesh, to set things right.
How convinced are you that you will be able to set things right, that there will not simply be the re-emergence of the old guard, that there will be a complete break with the old and an in with the new? How convinced are you of that?
That's a fear everybody has in their mind. How to avoid that, that's our effort. As an interim government, our effort is to make sure we don't go back to those old days. How to reform the institutions. So reform agenda is the most important agenda for interim government. We have appointed 15 reform commissions, each on one subject, on the constitution reform, election reform, civil administration reform, judiciary reform. So there are 15 of them. So they are coming up with their recommendations now. We are receiving the recommendations and they are handing over. Our job is to see how many of these recommendations are acceptable by people. So we want to do that, creating by a new commission. It's a consensus building commission. That commission goes with the recommendations to the political parties, asking them the question, which one you agree, which one you disagree, which one you partially agree, etc., in a kind of a spreadsheet. So ultimate goal is to find out on which of the recommendations all parties agree.
In finding consensus, I wonder how mindful you are of the role that Gen Z played in the so-called monsoon revolution. They were at the forefront and in many ways bore the brunt of police violence during it. How are you ensuring that there is consensus in terms of their involvement in the future direction of the country?
Here we are talking about the political parties. They are representing the views of the people. There are many people outside the political parties. But luckily, those young people that you mentioned, they form a political party itself. So as a political party, same thing is asked to them. What are the things that you agree, disagree, partially agree, and so on and so forth. Ultimate goal is to collect all them on which items all parties agree. That will be the most important thing, because these are the items that all parties agree. And once it's done, process is done, this will be put in another piece of paper. On this, all parties agree, and all parties sign on this document.
So you clearly have a strategy. You clearly
clear.
have a method.
Absolutely.
But personally, what kind of leader would you like to see take the country forward after this interim period is over?
Not go back to the old fascist regime that we have, not go back to plundering of the economy and so on and so forth. But you cannot guarantee the leader, but you guarantee how the system works. So we are trying to reform the system.
You said fascist regime. Yeah. Those are strong words to use. Why use them?
Use them because that's the features they have displayed during their regime. So this is how they have been described in the entire program that the students were taken. So our idea is to see that the institutions are reformed, policies are reformed, so that we can go back and create a norm, standards that everybody agrees. People can say, hey, you agreed on this, now why aren't you doing that? When we have this piece of paper with all the agreements on it, we'll name it a July Charter. So this is the July which uprising took place. The July Charter will be kind of consensus for all parties, and we follow the July Charter, how to implement those things. Some of the implementation will come before the election. Some of the implementation will come after the election. So this is the scenario that we are following right now.
In terms of the timeline for an election, are you confident of reaching the target of the earliest December this year?
That's right, yeah.
Latest next June, is that correct?
Always.
Where do we expect it to be between those two options?
That will depend on how many of them we are agreeing, disagreeing, how much time it takes. So if the consensus is you have a larger number of items that we can agree on and we want to implement before the election, then we take a longer time. If they are not in a hurry to have the election and go a smaller version of the implementation, then we have the early election in December. If it takes a longer version, we go up to June. Beyond June, we don't go.
How do you ensure the results of that election is respected? Will international observers be allowed in, for instance?
Everybody will be able. We promise, interim government keep promising, we will have the best election ever taken place in Bangladesh. That's the kind of election we are going to have.
Big implications as to whether or not the Awami League will be allowed to take part in those elections, the party of the former leader, Sheikh Hasina.
Part of it will be decided by the party itself to decide that they want to join or not. We don't know yet. They have not declared anything. And when it happens, what is the response from the Election Commission and so on and so forth.
So you're leaving it entirely to the Election Commission to make that
election. There are other parties who may say that under this law they cannot participate and so on.
Is it fair to say that the honeymoon period after the fall of Sheikh Hasina is probably over now? There are some pretty big challenges that you need to provide concrete answers for, given the fact that there is this lingering influence of the old guard, others who may seek to exploit the political vacuum. And you also, of course, have something like 1 million Rohingya refugees as well that you are minding. Is this something Bangladesh can do alone?
Two things. One, about the impatience of people, whether honeymoon period is over or not. Seeing the situation in Bangladesh, still people think interim government is still the good answer for them. They're not saying, let the interim government go, have the election today. Nobody said that. So this is the direction we are going. We have not faced any such problem of people saying that hand it over as soon as possible. But the Rohingya, that's a separate issue. We're dealing with the Rohingya issue with international organizations, United Nations, and also to make sure that these people can go home safely. So our idea is how to make sure some understanding is created between Bangladesh and Myanmar so that there's a safe resettlement of Rohingyas to go back to their own homes.
Given the huge amount of pressure, like I said, 1 million Rohingya in Bangladesh and countries like the United States, even the United Kingdom and others saying, look, for financial reasons, we are not going to spend what we used to spend on international aid. Does that worry you? Does that concern you? Or can Bangladesh shoulder this pressure from other sources?
I would say that Bangladesh will not be alone to help them. There are many, many countries will help them to make sure. But even more than that, it's not about helping them to stay. The important thing to help them to go back to their homes. They have their homes, they have their land, they have their professions. Go back to their profession. They are professional people like engineers,